Well, we're just trying to provide a background as to why the National Human Rights Commission had to sit on that matter, you know, talking about SARS and the excesses of not just of SARS as a special anti-robbery squad, but also perhaps maybe some of the Nigeria police by extension. To get some thinking on how that investigation went, we have with us this morning Mr. Abdurrahman Yakubu, who is secretary to the presidential panel on SARS reform. You're welcome to Sunrise City this morning.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you. Let's talk about how this investigation went. It could not have been easy trying to investigate police officers, because we know that usually within the forces, within security agencies, they always maintain that we have our own internal investigation and prosecution mechanism. They have the orderly room trials, for instance. How easy was it for the NHRC to be able to sit on this matter and get the cooperation of the Nigeria police?
Okay. Thank you very much. One important thing is that the panel was constituted pursuant to the National Human Rights Commission Act of 1995 as amended. So therefore, the sittings and the proceedings of that panel was guided by the National Human Rights Commission Act, as well as the standing orders and rules of procedure of the commission.
Oh, don't get it wrong. I didn't say that you didn't have the powers to. I'm just saying that oftentimes you might not get the cooperation of the people whom you seek to investigate. Did you get their cooperation?
Yes, yes. I was just trying to lay the background.
Okay, go ahead.
Because, you know, like, if you are doing something that is based on a particular law, therefore, all those that are subject to that proceedings, they must, you know, subject themselves to the law. So what the panel did was to write to the then IGP, and they requested that the IGP should appoint a very senior police officer.
Who's that, Potom Idris?
Yes, Potom Idris.
Okay.
Not below the rank of an AIG. So he appointed the AIG in the first CID to be the liaison officer between the police and the panel. So therefore, it made the job of the panel to be much easier. And that was due to the experience of the commission in previous public hearings concerning allegations of human rights violations by the police. So because of that, because of two things, because of the fact that the panel was a panel set up by the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the highest political office in the land, and also because of the fact that the IGP has designated an AIG to serve as a liaison officer. So it was much easier for the panel to carry out its public hearings.
I find it interesting that your recommendation said 37 police officers be outrightly dismissed. You recommended another 24 for further prosecution, and then you said that the IG should fish out 22. What happened to the 22? You couldn't find them?
Yes, because what happened was that most of the complainants actually could not identify the particular police officers that carried out the alleged violation. So because of that, it became very difficult to actually hold any particular police officers accountable. But because these were very grave human rights violations, and the panel does not want it to go unaccounted for, that is why we felt that the police should be able to use its own internal mechanisms to be able to identify those officers that perpetrated those violations.
Can you tell us about the kinds of violations that were reported to the National Human Rights Commission?
Yes, there are very many of them. We have arbitrary arrests and detention. We have allegation of torture, cruel, inhuman, and degrading treatment. We have allegation of abuse of power by certain police officers in the course of their duties. We also have allegation of extrajudicial killing, as well as many people dying in police custody. Then we have allegation of extortion and bias investigation, and so on and so forth.
Those are really extensive. I mean, in the cases of extrajudicial killings, what sort of recommendations did you make? I know that your report, even though what we've seen so far seems to be a summary, the report itself is not yet out for public consumption. Yeah. But what did you recommend for cases where lives have already been lost, or perhaps there's been heavy body damage to the person, such that the person might not be able to make good use of their bodies any longer or function effectively in society?
Yes. That was why there are a series of recommendations. So one is the issue of dismissal, and we also recommend payment of compensation to the families of the deceased, as well as to those that were incapacitated as a result of the treatment they received in the hands of the police while they were in custody. Then we also recommended that the police should tender public apology in 2 national newspapers with proven evidence of circulation in the states where those violations occurred. Those were some of the recommendations that we also made.
One of the things that has come out very controversially is the recommendation that police and the state and local government police be looked into. I mean, be set up and be looked into and set up. I think that was your recommendation. What made you reach this conclusion?
Thank you. You will know that quite some time this country has been going through a lot of security challenges, to the extent that some state governors even cried out to say that even though they are supposed to be the chief security officer of their state, but because of certain circumstances, they were not able to perform such functions. So the panel felt that this is a time that Nigeria should start to look at this issue of having state, and not only state. We also felt that it should go beyond that. The local government authorities should also be empowered to also have local police, because we felt that that will go a long way, you know, in making sure that we have better security management. Why did we say that? We said that because of the fact that people that will go into state police or local government police will be people that either are resident in those particular areas, or they are people that are indigenous of those states. So it will be easier for them to understand the security challenges in those particular environments. And also the people know them, they know the people, because one of the terms of reference of the panel is to also advise government with respect to how there can be improvement in public security and public safety, apart from looking at violations of human rights by the SARS or other police formations. So the panel felt that to actually improve public security and public safety in the country, this is a time for us to have state police, and not only state police, also local government police.
One of the things that you recommended was that the name of SARS be changed. They should focus squarely on armed robbery cases, and that they also should be brought, that unit should be brought under the intelligence unit of the Nigeria Police. What informed this recommendation? Yes,
thank you. Originally, when there was the issue of incessant armed robbery, particularly in the 80s, so the police has to think of how to address this very serious criminal issue. So that was what led to the establishment of the anti-robbery section of the Nigerian police. And the anti-robbery section was supposed to be an intelligence gathering unit, not an operational unit of the police. But over time, because of maybe increase in high rate of crime, so it found itself to be called Special Anti-Robbery Squad, and the name, stuck. And in the past few years, we are all witnesses to what SARS operatives do, and also the public outcry, because SARS has gone completely beyond its mandate. The anti-robbery section was supposed to deal squarely with issue of robbery. But we observed and we discovered that SARS went into so many things that they were not supposed to do. And they wielded so much power, and they abused, this power. And I think by the time the report of the panel comes to the public, we will see the level of perpetration in terms of human rights violations carried out by operatives of staff. But that is not to say that that is an institutional thing. So it is not the police as an institution, but it is some overzealous, officers that found themselves in this unit that carried out these heinous perpetration of human rights violations. So the panel, having looked at various memoranda from serving police officers, because we received memoranda even up to the divisional police level. So police officers themselves made recommendations on how this unit should be reformed. And the panel felt that SARS should now go back to its original objective, which was to tackle armed robbery, only armed robbery, not any other crime. Because the police, apart from anti-robbery squad, they also have various sections that deal with other kind of heinous crimes. They have anti-cult section, they have anti-kidnapping section, they have homicide section. So why now allow a particular unit to now take over the functions of all these other units? So the panel felt that that name should change. It should go back to its original anti-robbery section, and it will be better for it to perform intelligence rather than operations.
Let's go to Lagos now and take, I believe we have some guests standing by. Chamberlain.
Well, yes, we do, and having heard that backgrounder to what transpired, how they arrived at those, perhaps better informed now. We've got two gentlemen here to weigh in also on the subject matter. Mr. Ibezimako Ahaya, former Commissioner of Police in Kano and, I beg your pardon, in Kogi and Benue State, and the Ekiti State 3. We also do have retired Colonel Tony Nyam. Gentlemen, thank you for coming on today. Let me start with you. You heard there was some impunity going on with SARS. Is there anything wrong in returning them to their original functions, as we've heard the background there?
First of all, the former IG shouldn't have sent a serving AIG to liaise with the police and the human rights.
Why?
The AIG, because of the president directives and because of position security, he will not be able to defend Nigerian police properly. Those of us who have served in this force for 35 years will have been the type of people you send to the human rights presidential panel who will tell them, like they say, scrapping of SARS. The other time I came...
No, they didn't say scrapping. Returning to the original function. What is anti-robbery squad? Not invading people's privacy,
listen,
which they
the other time I came here, I told you that all the state CIDs now are headed by Deputy Commissioner of Police. And in the state CID, you have sections, anti-robbery, all sections, murder section, and all this. The only thing the IG should do is to transfer the SARS men under the DC state CIDs in all the states.
What difference would that make?
Let me tell you the difference. The DC and its AC will be able to supervise them, make sure they don't abuse human rights. The initial concept of SARS, I told you, was started when robbery was too much in Lagos. Gambo set up SARS, Special Anti-Robbery Squad, headed by Kwajafa, to tackle robbery in Lagos. At a stage, some CPs came and started creating SARS in commands. I served in 3 states. I didn't have SARS. I used my ACCID and anti-robbery squad, and I made arrests. So many arrests. He is saying that SARS should concentrate only on intelligence gathering. He's wrong.
No, not just intelligence gathering. The original function, they are called anti-robbery squad.
Anti-robbery section.
Sorry, anti-robbery.
Anti-robbery.
That's the original function.
Yes, and that is the abuse. Because when some CPs created them, they handed them over to DSP superintendents. They deviated. Are you getting my point? They deviated from the concept of SARS. I don't know what I'm saying. So what I'm saying, my recommendation, that's why I said we should have been with these people. Those of us, like I used to tell people, a gynecologist who is lecturing in the university for 20 years, and the man who is in the hospital every day, delivering babies, who's supposed to be a professor? Who should know what happens about childbirth? Those of us in the police that have served police for 35 years, we are the ones to tell these people.
Well, what taught the person in the hospital?
But by the time he comes out, there will be so many complications, different issues on child delivery.
Perhaps the jury will be out on that. But Colonel, you've taken a keen interest in what happens to the police and how we get it right. What do you think of this?
I think I am not. He is an expert on police operations. My interest is that when it comes to the corporate governance of police is beyond a police officer. Usually, everywhere else, you cannot be the policy maker or lawmaker is distinct from one who executes the policy or enforces the law. And I was privileged when in exile as chairman of Scottish Ethnic Minority Rights Council. I interacted with the Police Service Commission in Scotland. And I think we must commend the president in that, first of all, for allowing this panel to sit, and his response from what the panel's recommendations, his approval in principle, and giving instructions for these to be translated, the details to be worked out, is in order. I think I commend the president for that move. But what I must say is that I discern some confusing signals coming out from a special advisor, that is Malam Garuba Shehu.
What's the confusing signal?
The confusing signal is that the president was quite clear in that I have a question, I can read his,
Go ahead.
His what I call executive directive, is that the Inspector General of Police, I say two generals, if I may say, the Inspector General of Police and the Solicitor General, to liaise with the Nigerian Human Rights Commission to work out the modalities for the implementation of the panel's recommendation within 3 months. And this, of course, includes state and local government police. I think it's a welcome move by the president. I suspect, as I would, that the rivalry play in behind the scene are indirectly trying to mislead the president, because the president, for a change, is trying to set the tune, so, which is started by saying he's going to start federalism. People who don't want it are trying to mislead the president to go back to his
so what is the confusing signal between Garba Shehu's message and
Garba
this
Shehu was saying
yeah.
that the president, from what we read, he said that the president is not approved state police, and that without a white paper.
Yeah, his heading was President Buhari has not approved state and local government police.
Yeah, but
is it? Why is that confusing?
No. The president gave an approval in principle. We all saw it in telly. It is not
you just said he did say yes, go and work out the modalities. There has to be a white paper.
No.
The president does not have the power to unilaterally approve state and local government police.
He didn't say, he approved the recommendations of the panel that they should work out the modalities of how to establish them. That's how a president speaks.
Okay.
The modalities are the modalities would involve constitutional amendments with all that. That's what the president is saying. But now, those who want the old order have started their game.
Not to worry, Mr. Yakubu is still there, so we'll go much later. We'll get his views on that. But Mr.
So before we go back to Mr. Agani, I want to ask Mr. You talked about the governance of the police.
Yes, corporate governance of the police.
The corporate governance
distinct
of the police.
from the higher management of the police. That's the mistake. We mix them both. We mix them up both.
In which way has that affected anything, really?
In which way? Because if you start with the Police Service Commission, as it's constituted in Nigeria, makes the police not to be able to observe the principle of policing of impartiality. The Police Service Commission in Scotland and some other places, I would recommend that this panel should go to Israel. I went to Mumbai State Police. The Police Service Commission is usually constituted by a collegiate made up of trade unionists, civil society, that was why I got involved, and the bar and the benches of a community. They form the representatives. They are not appointed by government. The different collegiates...
So you're saying essentially that the community is involved
Indeed.
in the whole process.
They see a police, the principle of policing is that the police is locally accountable to the people. And for that to happen, the police do not take instruction from government.
Okay. What's wrong with the principal approval of recommendations, including states and local government police?
The National Human Rights Commission, they acted, their recommendation is not in tune with the Constitution.
How do you mean?
One, they cannot say that they recommended that 32 policemen should be dismissed. We have a procedure of dismissing a police officer. They say we have recommended that 32 police officers should be subjected to internal discipline of the Nigerian police force in line with the Constitution. The Constitution says before you dismiss a policeman, you must take him to orderly room, try him on the room. It's a mock court. You bring witnesses. The man who said he was abused, the man who said his right was abused. Yeah, we bring witnesses. Well, let me finish. We bring witnesses before a police officer. You try him, convict him based on his disciplinary record. You can recommend for severe reprimand. You can recommend for dismissal. You can recommend for suspension, and you will send it to the IG to review.
Irrespective of the gravity of the offense.
Irrespective of the gravity.
Irrespective.
Yeah, if it is a murder case, you will try him for excessive use of authority. Then dismiss him before you take him to court for murder. And he has right to appeal to the Police Service Commission. So the human right went, their recommendation that 32 policemen, let me tell this country, let us be careful.
37.
If 37, let us be careful. If we lose these junior officers, if we make them not to be confident enough to attack criminals, the whole country will collapse.
In other words,
the policemen are with, let me finish. You cannot say a policeman should be dismissed, whether it is the president. The president cannot order a policeman to be dismissed. He must go for the room.
He cannot?
He cannot. He must go for the room. There is a constitutional decision. He must go for the room.
Yeah, but are you suggesting that this is a recommendation? So it doesn't mean that this recommendation is going to be carried out in the way it was recommended. Of course, they will subject it to procedure.
They are not saying they should take it to the Attorney General and somebody to bring a white paper. What is the white paper? White paper is they should go.
See,
no, not yet.
Let me understand what you are saying.
See, the confusion is arising because people are not getting what the president said. He said, work out the modalities. So which means the president, you see, this is why I think Shehu Musa or Shehu Garuba is not helping the president. Because, you see, the president is clear. Working out the modalities of how to achieve a result does not mean that will cater for what my colleague here is afraid of.
Okay, well, we'll go to break now. Mr. Yakubu, I'm sure you have to untangle this web for us when we come back in a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back. Well, isn't it clear now, having listened to that again, the president saying they will work out modalities for implementing those reports. So what is contradictory about it?
That is what I'm saying. They will work out modalities to protect the rights of those policemen. The human rights organizations recommended that they should be dismissed.
No, they just said to protect their rights.
They
what kind of recommendations of that panel?
Yes, we are talking of, we are talking of the dismissal of the policemen, but not going to state police.
Yeah, you don't want them dismissed, do you?
No, they must follow due process. They have rights. This rank and files in the Nigerian police force, they have rights. They are being abused. I just don't know. They have rights.
Then how do you get past that submissions also by the NHRC where 22 officers are to be fished out because they violated human rights and they're still within the police force and cannot be identified.
I agree with you. If there are facts, let me tell you, this panel is an ad hoc panel. The Police Service Commission should have a panel of this nature to be investigating abuse of policemen. Not when tomorrow another president will come, he will form another. It should be with the Police Service Commission to have a panel of this nature that will constantly be investigating the abuse by police on daily basis.
What results have we gotten with the PSC ever since?
With PSC, there are. We have been dismissing policemen for abuse. I've tried so many policemen. I tried 2 policemen in Benue State for abuse and dismissed them. It is not when you set up this Human Rights Commission. Human Rights Commission, they have a problem in Nigeria. What's
the problem?
The problem is that anytime they're talking of extrajudicial killing, in America, killed Osama bin Laden extrajudicially. They did not send human rights this thing to try the military men that killed Osama bin Laden. They sent him with rifle. They arrested him. They killed him and dumped him inside the river. Every day, Nigeria is talking of human rights, human rights. Let us not make our rank a fight. This is happening in the military.
So you don't subscribe to protection of human rights or what?
There is limitation to rights. There are limitations to rights. There are limitations.
Okay, hang on, Colonel.
Excuse me, I completely disagree with that, because if one trained in a disciplined force, you cannot say that you do not respect human rights. One. Secondly, I'm saying that the fresh air which President Muhammad Buhari is bringing, we must not allow and push him back to what he was. The fresh air, and clearly you saw it from directive, that Shehu Garuba Shehu did not understand the president or is trying to bring confusing signals.
How?
What? No, the president is very clear. The issue here is that my colleagues here, his fears will be addressed by the modalities. The modalities would include, as he has said, going through the due process of dismissing. It's not that the president has said dismiss them or accepted dismissing them. He's saying go and work at the modalities.
Dito the state police. Look at Gabasheo's statement, for instance. If I could read some part of it. Maybe it's a headline which you have challenges with, because the headline reads, President Buhari has not approved state and local government police.
Correct.
And then it goes on, the body of the response. The president on Monday received the report from, the panel. He requested the report be studied and the white paper produced within 3 months. He goes on, I'm looking for the other part. He now says, the report of the white paper committee will form the basis of the decision of the government on the many recommendations, including the setting up of state and local government police made by the Ojukwu panel. What's the confusion?
Sorry.
So he's basically saying the same thing.
No, it's not saying the same.
Not by fact.
It's not saying the same. He is the spokesman of the president. Here is the president's voice. Once the president speaks, spokesman cannot come and be controverting indirectly. Let me tell how he controverted the whole thing. You see, the president gave what is called in government approval in principle. Go and work out the details. That's what the president did. Because if you've served in any place, that's what the president would do. And I think the president, we must not allow people to mislead President Muhammadu Buhari to go back to what he's been criticized for.
Well, let's get to Abuja. Makwe, Mr. Yakubu, I think we need to shed some light on the perspectives here.
Well, Mr. Yakubu is definitely finding the discussion very interesting. I'm sure that you would like to explain a bit, because I can see that Mr. Aganya is talking about the rights of the dismissed police officers. He is saying that, it seems due process has not been followed in recommending their dismissal. Can you shed a little more light on that?
Okay, thank you. We cannot say that due process was not followed in recommending the dismissal or any other disciplinary actions against those that have been found to have violated the human rights of innocent Nigerians. So what the panel did was to recommend to the president, based on the enormity of the violations. And one thing that is clear, is that there is a process and a procedure of disciplining a public officer, including a police officer. And the government agency that is responsible for doing this is the Police Service Commission. So at the end of the day, if the government approves the recommendations of this panel, what the government will do is to forward the names of these officers to the Police Service Commission that has the statutory responsibility to appoint and discipline any police officers except the IGP. So the issue of not following this process has not arisen at all. Then secondly, the police officers that were mentioned in these complaints, they had the benefit of being defended at the public sittings of the panel. The police, as an institution, sent a team of legal officers that were at the panel throughout its sittings. And some of the police officers even came with their personal lawyers, so to defend themselves against these allegations. So even though the panel did not follow the comprehensive rules of evidence in accordance with the Evidence Act, because the panel was set up pursuant to the National Human Rights Commission Act of 1995 as amended, and the standing orders and the rules of procedure of the commission. But basic evidential rules and requirements were observed because every police officer mentioned were given the opportunity to defend the allegations made against them. The complainants were led in evidence by their counsel. The police officers were led in evidence by the police legal team. Documents were submitted, were tendered before the panel, and all these were in accordance with the basic requirements of evidence. So the issue of due process is not there in any way. And despite the fact that this panel listened and heard the complainants as well as the police officers that were mentioned, at the end of the day, no disciplinary action will be taken against any officer without being subjected to the processes of the Police Service Commission.
There's something, though, I mean, which I would like to bring out, which is the fact that this panel, this 8-man panel, was set up by the Vice President in his capacity as acting president.
Yes.
It is interesting to note that both the President and the Vice President received the report of the panel. The President promised to fully implement the report. He also said something there. He said the recommendations of the commission that constituted the panel are enforceable as decisions of the court. What does that mean?
Okay, what it means is that is why I keep on repeating the fact that this panel is not the normal kind of panel. And that was why the President directed the National Human Rights Commission to constitute the panel. Now, it might have been set up under the Tribunal of Inquiry Act, so which is the federal legislation that deals with how a panel is set up. But this was set up pursuant to the National Human Rights Commission Act, which means that the law, the legal framework under which this panel, worked is the NHRC Act. And that is why the President reiterated the fact that the recommendations, and the directives of this panel, is like the decision of the court. So, and there is a process in the law, that is in the act, of how this should be done. But of course, the thing is that, just as I keep on saying, is that the government, the federal government, would still look at these recommendations. So, approve or disapprove some of them, and...
So, was it premature for the President to have promised to fully implement the report?
No. There is nothing that is premature there, because what the President said is that in view of the legal framework, under which this panel was set up, the President now directed the IGP, the Solicitor General of the Federation, and the National Human Rights Commission to work out the modalities of the implementation. So which is in recognition of the legal framework under which the panel did its assignment. So there was nothing like there is no confusion, there is no contradiction. It is just that these three institutions have to work together and deal with the modalities of implementing the recommendations.
So, I mean, for some now, they will say that the ones that have to do with the police, for instance, there's the dismissal, the prosecution and things of the sort. Wouldn't it be handled by the Nigerian police? Is that part of what this new panel will be dealing with, or is it just the modalities for the state and local government police that they're going to be dealing with? No.
The modalities is the whole of the recommendations, of the panel. That there are so many recommendations that the panel has made to government. So the modalities will now be how best will these recommendations be implemented in its entirety. But of course, government does not just implement recommendations of any panel. Government has to critically examine those recommendations and then look at the various legal frameworks, so that at the end of the day, so there will not be any breach or any violation of the law of the land. So that is the purpose of working out the modalities, to ensure that all the legal perspective, all the legal areas are carefully looked into before these recommendations are implemented.
Well, the NHRC should certainly feel emboldened by this decision of the president, by his promise to fully implement the report that they have undertaken. Do you think that there will be many more investigations, considering that there are many more abuses being reported by people? Perhaps we've only been able to capture a few brought by a few complainants. Considering just how extensive some of these abuses have been, not just by the Nigerian police now, but other institutions of state, does the NHRC intend to go into other areas investigating abuses, even if it doesn't receive complaints?
Thank you very much. Well, that is what we do every day. So what we do every day is to receive complaints on allegations of human rights violations, investigate and make appropriate determination and decisions. What this one has done is to show the commitment, the level of commitment of the federal government in upholding the human rights of Nigerians and all those that live in Nigeria, and also recognizing, the efforts of the National Human Rights Commission in carrying out its mandate. And this has sent a very strong signal to all those that will always want to violate the human rights of citizens, to know that this government, this administration would leave no stone unturned to ensure that Nigeria operates within the ambit of the law. And it was very clear in the president's statement to say that, yes, the police and other law enforcement agencies, they have the statutory responsibility to prevent crime, to apprehend criminals, and to also detect crime. But this must be done in accordance with the extant laws of the land, and in accordance with the Nigerian Constitution, and also in accordance with the international human rights obligations of Nigeria.
It's a fine place to leave it. Mr. Abdurrahman Yakubu is the secretary to the Presidential Panel on SARS Reform. Thank you for coming on Sunrise Today this morning.
It's a pleasure. You're welcome.
It's back to you, Chamberlain.
Well, let's see if those can take away the steam from what he said. But you heard his explanation there now. Are you clear about those recommendations now?
He said they did not apply comprehensive rules of evidence.
I knew you were going to highlight that.
He said they did not apply comprehensive rules of evidence in the Evidence Act.
Meaning?
So that they are not a court of competent jurisdiction to say a policeman should be dismissed. Because if you dismiss such policemen without recommendation, he will go to a competent court. He will get good lawyers, and they will recall him back.
He also said that, yes, the IGP, or they will work out the modalities in line with the PSC.
That is why the human rights should have recommended 32 policemen should be disciplined, and if found guilty, they shouldn't have recommended
but it's clear
that the two
that
policemen should be dismissed. Let me understand what I'm saying.
Okay, you're very concerned about the wordings of that.
Yes, they have no power to say. That means they have told the court or anybody that will try them in the other room, dismiss them. When I was a junior officer, IG will call you, say, try this constable and dismiss him. I will say, okay, sir. I would go by the rules of evidence.
Okay, but is it hazy to you?
Sorry?
Is it hazy or clear?
Isn't. The president is quite clear. There's precedences. During the killing of the Nigerian in London, the Metropolitan Police, there was a panel set up. Remember, one adjective we are not looking at is this is a presidential panel. It's much more than a Police Service Commission's inquiry. No, this is the highest panel. So it has the power. Just like the commission the judiciary inquiry that was set up in London to deal with the killing of this Nigerian in London, it came out with profound recommendations that changed the Metropolitan Police way of acting. So I think, you see, we're missing an opportunity here. When the right signals are sent out by government, we should try and join in and encourage the president rather than trying to allow those who want the status quo to remain, to prevail. The noises they make will overshadow the good things that the president has started. First, saying true federalism, but the sign is showing, accepting state policing.
We'll come to that bit now, but
shows that he's ready to.
You seem particular about the rank and file, but I know that in one of the recommendations as well, the police were directed to immediately arrest and prosecute 2 retired senior officers found to have violated the rights of citizens, one for extrajudicial killing and the other for illegal takeover of property of a suspect. So is it that you're more concerned about the rank and file? What about if the public loses confidence in the rank and file, which is worse?
Let me tell you, in the Nigerian police, we have system of protecting human rights of citizens. If I had brought to you, if I give you the offenses in police regulation, unnecessary use of authority, abuse of unnecessary use of firearms, we have the system in the police of taking human rights abuse, and we have been doing it. Let me tell you, it may not be perfect. We may not be 100%. We have been doing it. We have been dismissing policemen that assault civilians. We have been dismissing policemen that use firearms unnecessarily. We have dismissed policemen for converting people's property.
Why did these 2 escape the radar? Why did these 2 escape your discipline?
In America, are you saying that?
No, Nigeria. Nigeria.
You won't get it 100%. What I'm trying to say is that let us make a success.
For this, Mr. Gaya, for this to have called for a presidential panel, it has gone on for too long. Note this, part of the rank and file, the IGP is to unravel the identity of 24 officers involved in rights violations. They went on for so long, nothing was done. Now the presidential panel is taking action, and you're still raising the same issues.
Tell you,
the same issues that brought us to where we are now.
They said IG should go and press those 22 officers. They have not been found guilty. They will defend themselves. Because there are mistakes you people make. This human rights abuse. They say extrajudicial killing. There is limitation to life.
What do you mean by limitation?
A limitation.
Yes, you said so.
In the case of extrajudicial killing, when people talk of extrajudicial killing, let me give you an example. These armed robbers operating between Abuja and Kaduna. By the time you arrest them, no more complainants. No more complainants. You won't be able to trace the complainants. You may go to a place and see them with arms. You are now telling me, as a commissioner of police, Kaduna State, I should charge them for lawful possession of firearms?
What would you do in that?
I will shoot them inside the bush. I will shoot them inside the bush. Do you know how I clear this thing you people are talking?
But that's violation of human rights.
Violation of human rights. If we want to stop violation of human rights in Nigeria, we should make sure our administration of justice meets the standard of that of US. Look at Evans.
Are you saying that doesn't happen in the US?
It
doesn't happen in the US.
Who told you? Torture?
That's what the NHRC
they call it limited torture. They call it limited torture.
As a matter of fact, that's what the NHRC doesn't want the police to do.
You
say that you shoot them.
NHRC should tell the president to make sure they provide the police the type of equipment you have in America. New York police has 8 helicopters
But Colonel, on a lighter note, should he have joined the army instead of being in the police?
He knows what I'm saying.
No.
He knows what I'm saying. Colonel Yam knows what I'm saying.
No. But I must say, I don't think my colleague here, he was sort of an emotional outburst. He shouldn't have said that he would shoot this thing in public.
Okay.
No, listen. Just a minute. You are a trained, disciplined force. That's the difference between you and a non-state actor wing. Please, I share.
I'm no longer serving.
Is it wrong for the soldiers fighting the insurgency in the northeast to come across terrorists in the bush and shoot them?
Thank you very much.
Let me answer you straight. You do not shoot when you've arrested a terrorist. If you arrest a terrorist, after you've arrested him or captured him,
it becomes a POW.
You don't, the training, and it applies to police. You don't shoot such a person.
What circumstances can you shoot?
Only,
and how and when?
Only when he's still armed against you.
Which is the same situation he
No.
Which is the same situation.
No. You asked me.
He said, hold on. He said that if he goes to the bush and he sees them with their guns, he's going to shoot them.
No. He said if he goes to the bush and he arrests them, he won't take them too. Once you've arrested them, you don't shoot them.
What do you mean by arrest? How do you define?
Clarify what you said. Say it again.
Let me give you. I will give you an example with Osama bin Laden. America arrested Osama bin Laden without a gun. They knew that they would not have complete forensic evidence to prosecute him. They killed him. Well, if I get a bandit in the bush with AK-47, do they use AK-47 to do hunting in the bush?
We have laws in this country which we have to stick with.
I agree with you.
And stick by. But one more thing, gentlemen, and quickly too. Do you agree that we require state police at this time in our history?
We require community policing. We don't require state police. The increase in security, security is not due to lack of state police. I'll give you an example. Let the governors concentrate on primary education and primary health sanitation. They have not been able to complete primary education, primary health and sanitation. They are talking of police force that requires huge fund to get a police force.
All right.
You see, first, I'm really happy with the new IG because unlike many other IGs before him, he seems to be a man with some knowledge. Like my colleague has said here, it's a mix-up. Community policing is a principle of policing. It's not an establishment. You have, in other words, when you community policing, you apply it in a federal, in a state, a local government police. It's a way of policing. But when it comes to establishment, it's different. So don't mix it up. Community policing does not mean that you cannot have community policing as a way of policing in a local government police.
Would they have to wear uniform at community level police?
No, there's nothing like community policing. See, community policing, there's nothing like community policing. Community policing is a way of policing.
What of the Lagos neighborhood watch? What is it? What's the Lagos neighborhood watch? What do you use in states?
No, as an establishment. You see, there's a difference between establishment. Community policing is not community policing. It's not community police.
Okay, pardon me. Briefly, your response.
My response is that the vigilante groups, what definition of police? Any organization that maintains law and order. Vigilante groups in communities are already local government police. They should be used properly to gather information and give to the police force.
All right.
They are already local government police.
There's a difference between police and policing.
All right.
We are mixing up the two.
Okay, there you go.
Nuances are important.
We have to leave it at that point. Ibezimako Ahaya, former commissioner of police in Kogi, Benue, and Ekiti states, and also Colonel Tony Nyam, retired. Gentlemen, thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you, Chimbadi.
We're back in a moment. Stay with us.